Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And good afternoon, Thursday edition of the Steve Jones Show. News Radio 1070 WKOK. You can reach us at stevejones@wkok.com. It's our email. Like us on Facebook. Got our Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter. Twitter handle at SteveJonesPSU. After the live shows are done, we drop them as a podcast on both Google Play, iTunes, and the Apple Podcast app. So subscribe to our podcast, and the shows will drop to your smartphone and tablet, so you don't miss any of them. And we have 3 months of shows archived on our podcast page at stevejonesshow.com. Steve on his way into the Sunbury Motors Studios. Sunbury Motors, Ford, Lincoln, Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. We are with you live till 5. Then the late day news roundup at 5:06 with Sarah Bennick. Then Steve back tonight on WKOK 605, the Penn State Coaches Show with Patrick Chambers before the team heads for Northwestern. And Steve will be doing his show from Chicago tomorrow, leading up to their matchup on Saturday against the Wildcats. And after the Coaches Show tonight here on WKOK, we've got a huge Big 7 high school wrestling dual meet between Central Mountain and Shikellamy. From the Phil Lockoff Gym, Steve Williams will have that for you. He'll be right alongside the Resolite with all the action beginning at 7. Braves and Wildcats tonight here on WKOK. Shikellamy way overdue against Central Mountain. So let's see how that all shakes out. Steve had a chance to talk to one of the great wrestling writers in our area, Mitch Rupert of the Williams Sports Sun-Gazette. Steve appeared on Mitch's podcast a day or two ago. So if you're a big high school wrestling fan, you can hear Steve's conversation on Mitch's District 4 Wrestling podcast, which is available on SoundCloud. Mitch has that on SoundCloud. Congrats to the Bucknell Bison. Got a great win last night on the road at Loyola, so they were able to rack up back-to-back wins on a Monday and a Wednesday night. Monday night at Colgate, last night at Loyola, 78-70. Zach Thomas with a key double-double. Kind of a sporadic game, kind of choppy, quite a few turnovers, especially for the Bison in the first half. They were double-digit turnovers in the first half alone, and then woke up second half, got some breakaway dunks. As I mentioned, Zach Thomas with a key double-double, and we'll hear from Bucknell head coach Nathan Davis at 4:35, scheduled to join us then. Coming up Saturday at noon, it'll be a matinee. Bucknell will be back at Soika to take on Holy Cross. Live coverage on Eagle 107 will start at 11:30 on Saturday morning. So I got a kick out of this. This is kind of funny. I saw this headline. Minnesota travel ticket agencies, quote unquote, be warned of Eagles fans. They're afraid Vikings fans are not going to make it out of Philly alive? Come on. Philly people are great people. So ticket and travel agencies were featured on a TV station out of Minneapolis earlier this week. Lincoln Financial Field might be completely devoid of Vikings fans. Twins, this station in Minnesota recently sought insight on traveling to Philly for the big matchup.
Yeah.
And the segment unfolded more like a survival guide for people wanting to relocate.
Yeah. Why, yes.
The reporter says, it could be a fun day, but also comes with a warning, and then doubles down on his weary approach. If you're planning to go to the game in Philly, you should be warned. If Vikings fans are not scared, from the introduction alone, they will be by Steve Urban, who is a co-owner of a travel agency in Minnesota. Stands directly next to a Vikings fan while decked out in Vikings colors. He wastes no time by saying, I would advise you not to be over-inebriated, because they will be. Travel agencies,
It is the second game. I'd like to point that out.
Right.
So it'll be a finely tuned crowd.
Yes.
At the link. Yeah.
This specific travel agency, they're offering one-day flights to and from Philly. The trip includes guidance from them going into Lincoln Financial Field, which can be rough. The travel agency says they don't want to leave you shaking in your shorts as a Minnesota fan eyeing a visit to Philadelphia. They do get a warm endorsement from the Eagles faithful. Talked also with a ticket broker who has the most painful description of Philadelphia Eagles fans yet. Quote unquote, if the Vikings win, I would take off any sort of purple colors. You know, it may sound ridiculous, but it's no joke down in Philly. It really isn't. They were using Twilight Zone music for this TV feature.
Great. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's our little laugher for the day.
Yeah. Now I want to hit just briefly our Le'Veon Bell discussion from yesterday. Briefly. Had a little more time to look into it. Who is number one in the NFL in attempts this year?
Rushing attempts?
Yep.
Getting the ball?
Yep.
Okay, I won't overthink it. I will say Le'Veon Bell.
Yes.
Is the number over 300, I would think?
Yes, it is. 320. Okay. He was the only running back in the NFL with over 300. Okay. What did Todd Gurley average per carry this year?
Wow, I want to say close to 6, maybe?
No, 4.7.
Oh, okay.
Which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really good. What did Le'Veon Bell average this year?
Less than 4.7.
Yes, 4.0. In fact, he got it from 3.9 to 4.0 with the Christmas night performance against Houston. That got him to 4.0. It is the second worst rushing per attempt of his career. The only one previous to that had been his rookie year. His 3 years in the middle were all really good. I mean, for his career, he's 4.3, because he had a 4.9 one year, 4.7, whatever. But 4.0. Now, I realize that's 0.1 ahead of the Hall of Fame numbers of Jerome Bettis. But, I mean, so Pittsburgh has a little different standard of excellence compared to most franchises. Okay. Among running backs only, I'm not including receivers who run into rounds and things like that, where did Le'Veon Bell among running backs rank in yards per carry this year? Alvin Kamara was number one, by the way. We'll do higher or lower.
Okay. So what rank?
Yep. Where did his yards per carry rank among only running backs in the NFL?
9th.
Too low.
4th.
No, I mean, you got to go higher than 9. You got to go higher than 9.
I'll say right behind Alvin Kamara then.
No. It's got to be instead of 9, it's going to be 10 or higher.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Yeah, you're going the wrong direction.
Oh, okay.
Because it can't be, because Gurley is 4.7, so it can't be higher than Gurley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So higher than 9.
Mm-hmm.
20?
Higher.
28.
Higher.
37.
Higher.
50.
Higher.
70.
Lower. He was 57th among running backs in yards per carry this year.
Wow.
57th. Now, his durability and so forth. Okay, yards over 20. How many runs over 20 yards did he have this year?
I'll say 15. I'm probably too
Lower.
high. Yeah.
Lower.
10.
Lower.
6?
Lower.
Wow. 4?
Lower.
2?
No, higher. He had
Okay,
3.
he had 3.
3 runs over 20 yards the entire season.
Wow. Only 3. That.
Again, do I think Le'Veon Bell?
And he claims he wants to retire after the. Now he wants to retire.
No, but well, look. I mean, what he did. He is a great all-around player. But I'm bringing it back to the total package here. I feel like he adopted the running style he adopted in part after Heath Miller retired. Now, I mean, Heath Miller was a great player. I mean, great blocker. He'll never get into the Hall of Fame. But all the blocks he threw, they pull him across like he was a pulling guard at times. I'm just saying, they get stalemates at the line. He kind of delays and kind of finds, okay, there it is, and again goes. And nobody complains about it because they've been able to make it work.
So this was a question that I thought of this morning while having coffee that I didn't bring up yesterday.
Should I have cream? No. No.
I've been accused of having coffee with my coffee mate, but you saw a lot of him at Michigan State.
Uh-huh.
Describe his running style at Michigan State compared to now with the Steelers. What's the difference?
Well, he ran with reckless abandon at Ohio State, at Michigan State. He hurdled people. I mean, but he was also heavier then too. So he's a little bit different guy than when he was at Michigan State. He was a 240-pound guy at Michigan State. What is he now? 217, 220?
Looks like more of a scat back.
I mean, he's really, you want to talk about a guy that's got himself in phenomenal shape.
Yes.
I mean, he's gone from being the suit to being now. He's got. I mean, he's really. So he's a different back. I mean, he's a pro's pro when it comes to blitz pickup. He is the single best receiving running back in the league, bar none. I don't think there's really anybody close to him because he runs legitimate routes. He's got great hands, and he runs routes like a wide receiver. As a running back, he's really, really good. And look, his durability of 321 carries, that doesn't include the reception. What do you have, 85 receptions? So if he had 85 receptions, that's 416 touches. That's Larry Johnson-esque. Larry Johnson had 2 incredible years with Kansas City, but I think the volume got to him a little bit. Now, this was also a year he didn't have D'Angelo Williams. It's also a year where he had James Conner for a period of time, and then he got hurt. I mean, so they didn't have anybody really that could competently spell him either. I mean, that was part of it. But the 4 yards a carry, if I'm a Steeler fan, that's got to concern me. That's not a major league number. Todd Gurley had 4.7 yards a carry. That's a major league number. And Le'Veon Bell has had major league numbers in the past, 4.9, 4.7. I mean, the only other year that compares to this was his rookie year when he averaged 3.5 yards a carry.
Now, when you go between 4.0 and 4.7, you figure, that's not really that big a deal, but it really is.
Well, I mean, let's just take a half yard a carry times 300 carries. It's another 150 yards. I mean, that. Well, how many games? How much? Which is an additional, because he played 15 games. That's an additional 10 more yards a game. that you're going to get with the number of carries that he has. Because he played 15, he didn't play 16. Now remember, he got the 321 carries in 15 games. He didn't play the 16th game. And my point goes back to the offensive line. Some parts really good, other parts don't light me up. His running style is dictated, in my opinion, because let's take, for example, the Rams' offensive line. They got a great running back there, but they open up holes. They open holes for him. Against Jacksonville, you notice that when they ran straight ahead, they had holes. I mean, look, it is not unfair to question the performance up front. It's not unfair. And Pro Football Focus, I think, what was it, Troy, brought up Pro Football Focus.
Right.
Okay? Right. Yeah, Pro Football Focus rated Tyrod Taylor the 12th best quarterback in the NFL this year.
Alrighty. I said I might add that to my resume.
That's great. Pro Football Focus rated Tyrod Taylor the 12th best quarterback out of 32 in the NFL this year.
Ouch. I guess I figured, well, since Buffalo's in the playoffs, we've got to have him within the...
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do I admire the fact that Troy used statistical data to back up his argument? Absolutely. It was a brilliant use of it by Troy. Brilliant. My point is on the Tyrod Taylor thing is that, hold on a second here. Observation means something too. And my observation of the Steeler running game is, why does he run like that? He runs like that because he has to run like that. Now, do I think a big chunk of that is I'm not enamored with Foster and Gilbert on the right side? Absolutely. And I'm also not enamored with the blocking of the tight ends. There's no hole to go through. That's why you run that way. He's patient. He has to be patient. What's his choice? Getting stoned at the line of scrimmage? Or being patient and finding a crease? I give him credit for vision and patience and so forth. The reason no one talks about it is that it has worked to this point. But that is not how it's supposed to work. Okay? It's not supposed to work that way. All right, we got a lot to talk about today on the show, including Nathan Davis coming up. But the transfer rule is a huge, huge topic to talk about today. It's a big topic to talk about.
I remember late spring, early summer last year, we were kicking that around quite a bit.
Well, we're going to talk about that. It's going to be a new date to start the college basketball season as well, which is not as much of a big deal, but the transfer rule is a huge deal. Also, the redshirt rule. There's a lot to talk about. This is not a day shy on interesting topics. The Le'Veon Bell thing is just a fun thing to kind of kick around because, again, there's parts of what the Steelers do with the running game I'm not enamored with. They get something out of it. There's no doubt about it. But you got to think a little bit outside the box. You just can't put yourself, oh, they're fine. They're good. No, they're not. He has to run that way because he's forced to run that way. Todd Gurley is not forced to run that way. There's the hole. There he goes. Now, Bell's not the fastest guy out there either. That's why he only has 318 times the carry was under 20 yards. But you got to ask yourself, think outside the box a little bit. And again, my admiration for Troy is to do the Pro Football Focus thing. You know what? I love when people use something factual to back up their argument. And he did that. That was really cool. Now, you can then counter and say, Tyrod Taylor was the 12th rated quarterback on Pro Football Focus. It's not always quite what you think. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, he probably used the Tyrod Taylor card. I'm dead. We'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. This day in sports history coming up. Tomorrow's show, by the way, is in Chicago. Not that that matters to you. But we do take the show to every locale on the planet. But you got to admit, we do take you to where the action is. I mean,
we sure do.
Much, yeah, we do that. Okay, 1951, the NFL passed a rule that said a tackle, guard, or center was not eligible to catch a forward pass. See, they take all the fun out of it with these rules. 1958, Willie O'Ree became the first ever African-American player to play in the NHL, playing for the Boston Bruins. 50 years ago today. Check that, 60 years ago today. I should know that. 1958, I should know it's 60 years. Let's see. 1967, the NHL held the All-Star Game at midseason for the first time ever. They usually started the season with it. 1969, Ted Williams was appointed the manager of the Washington Senators. You know, he was not a bad manager. He actually did a pretty good job with them. 1976, the Steelers beat the Cowboys 21-17, Super Bowl X. Lynn Swann, the MVP. Telecast was viewed by an estimated 80 million people. Now it's about 120. Mary Decker broke the world indoor record when she ran the women's 200-meter race in 5 minutes, 34.2 seconds, 1985. Interleague play approved for the 97 season by baseball owners in the state in 96. And the Celtics retired Robert Parrish's 0-0 in 1998. So, there you go, this day in sports history. All right, I mentioned rules at the beginning. Let's talk about rules. Let's do the easy ones first. The college basketball season, which has been beginning on the second Friday of November, can begin on a Tuesday of that week. So, in other words, this upcoming year, the college basketball season, instead of beginning on Friday night, I want to say the 10th of November, or I think it would be November 9th, Friday night, November 9th this year. You'll be allowed to start on Tuesday, November 6th. Now, this is not for those who are faithful listeners of the show. I mentioned this possibility back in November, as a matter of fact, that they were looking at the first Tuesday of that week to do it, and now they've done that. So that'll just give a little more space. They're not increasing the number of games, just a little more space and breathing room to construct a schedule. And when you are a sport that spans 2 semesters, you know, a little space does not hurt. An extra 3 days, you can schedule a game on a Tuesday and come back and play again on a Friday if you want, or a Sunday, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. So it gives them a little more flexibility starting on Tuesday the 6th. That was an easy one. All right. Let's now go to the next one. They're looking at a redshirt rule for college football in which you will be able to play 4 games. And I don't know about you. I'm okay with that. That's fine by me. I don't mind somebody getting a 4-game look in their freshman year or whatever year. And that's what I believe they're looking at, that you can get and play. You know, in other words, you can play a 4th game. Everybody's playing 12 games now. But it's a proposed rule that they're looking at. And the proposal is to allow people to play the 4th game. It received overwhelming support that would allow players who participate in a maximum of 4 games the ability to retain their red shirts and preserve their eligibility. And I think almost everybody feels that this is moving forward. And I can see that that's going to. I think that'll work out. I think that's going to go, and it's. But I think it has to be the first 4 games. It just can't be 4 games. It's got to be the first 4 games. Okay. Just want to make sure that it's only the first 4 games. It doesn't say the first 4 games. You say you can play up to 4 games. Now, they're going to vote on this officially in the spring. But that's the proposal on the table. And it says up to 4. So, in other words, does this mean you could play the first 3 games of a season if you wanted to and then play the bowl game? See what I mean? So it would allow you to play up to 4 games but still maintain eligibility. And they're going to vote on that in the spring. So the basketball one is set. You can start that Tuesday, November the 6th, this upcoming season. So they moved it up 3 days. And the redshirt rule is something that a lot of coaches are in favor of. And you'd be able to play up to 4 games and still maintain your eligibility as a freshman or whatever class in that particular season happens to be. So that's that one. Now let's get to the big one. Now that's a pretty big one, but that's. They both have significance. Starting the college basketball season 3 days earlier has some significance. It gives you more leeway in scheduling, and you're already playing an exhibition game on that weekend usually anyway. And so they would allow you to play up to 4 games in any one year. Before then, once you play in the 5th game, then that's when you lose your eligibility. Right now, you lose. Actually, technically, you lose your. If you're not hurt, you lose your eligibility the second you take a snap. So you're going to vote on it so you can play up to 4 games. And by the way, it does not have to be in consecutive order. If you play, from what I read it, you can play in games 1, 5, 8, and the bowl game. And guess what? You still retain your freshman status moving forward. Okay? Now the big one. The transfer rule. Transfer rule's a different ballgame. And they're going to vote on this, it looks like, in June. And this would allow you to, as a student athlete, to transfer immediately to another school and play right away. Now, one of the caveats is they would tie grade point average in with this. You would have to have a grade point average. Right now, they're kind of fluctuating between 2.7 and 2.8. And if you have a grade point average that's higher than that, you could transfer right away without penalty. And that the changes According to FanRag Sports' John Rothstein, the changes would go into effect in August. They'd vote on it in June and then go in August. And a coach could not block schools and certainly give a lot more power to the players and not to the coach. Now, what would this mean? According to the NCAA, now this is college basketball. According to the NCAA, their own numbers, what percentage of players transfer by the end of their sophomore seasons? Once again, we'll do higher, lower. Sean? By the time they're a sophomore, up to being a sophomore, what percentage of players transfer in basketball? He's thinking because I think he's trying to consult the suit. The number is 40%. It's already a big number to begin with. Now, the grad transfer rule, otherwise known as the Michigan quarterback rule, it's how they recruit their quarterbacks. If you graduated, you can transfer without sitting out. Jake Rudock was a perfect example. He graduated, got his degree from Iowa, went to Michigan. Okay. That's just an example. We've seen that all over the place in basketball. They went about Lewis from Cleveland State by way of Penn State. And Lee left Drexel and went to Louisville as grad transfers. And were two of their better players. So Trey Lewis, again, I've seen too many players, and Trey Lewis is a good example. He played at 3 different schools in his career. Really? You want somebody playing at 3 different schools? But that's what this would do. Now let me give you an unintended consequence. Let's take an unintended consequence here. Say academically you're doing okay with their players. So everybody falls, like I mentioned the grade point average thing. You know, they said John's report was either 2.7 or 2.8. Again, this has not been nulled out. This is just out there for discussion. What if Sean Carey, as the head basketball coach of Wichita State, a really, really good mid-major, right? And Sean Carey then gets the Vanderbilt job. What's to keep Sean Carey now from taking the 5 members of his starting lineup with them who all have grade point averages of 2.8 or higher? What about that circumstance?
That could completely wreck a program and set them back 3, 4, 5 years.
Right,
that'd
exactly.
Be huge.
I'm just using this as a scenario. What's to keep you from doing that? I'll never forget when Rich Rodriguez took the Michigan job. The biggest problem he had at Michigan was he didn't have a quarterback like Pat White, and he specifically mentioned Pat White, that could run his system in the program. Remember the thing about Ryan Mallett transferring and so forth, and Mallett ended up at Arkansas. And I kept thinking, gee, you know, that's the first time I ever thought, and this is what, 2007? I want to say this happened. Somewhere around there. Penn State beat them in, 8, 9, 10? Beat them right in the 3 in a row. They beat Rodriguez. So maybe it was 2008. And that's the first time in my career I ever thought that, hey, wait a minute, you know, a coach, if they had a non-transfer, you know, if he didn't have to sit out a year, a coach could take a job and bring 5 of his starters with him. It's the first time I ever thought of it. Because he was talking about, it's too bad, because there's a lot of talk that Pat White might transfer to Michigan to play, but he'd have to sit out a year. And how do you do that? And how, there was a lot of debate about it. It's the first time I ever thought about it.
Yeah,
Somebody following their coach someplace.
Yeah, when we dove into, we were talking specifically on college basketball, just the total number of transfers across the country, just total number of players that moved from school to school. I was floored at the number.
It was 1,500 in 2 years.
Wow.
Again, 40%, according to the NCAA, 40% of college basketball players before the end of their sophomore year end up transferring. 40%. Now, this rule would go into effect in August. And hire a new coach and suddenly everybody just scatters and leaves. Okay. Now you're really beyond the 8 ball. Or coach takes one job, 3-4 players follow him. Now, this is football or basketball. I don't need a recruiting class. I just went from the let's pick a job. I just went from the Texas A&M job to the Utah job. I'm just picking jobs here. What's to keep me from taking 20 of my existing players with me, and that's my recruiting class? 20 guys that had the chops to play in the SEC are now playing for me at Utah. What's to keep that from happening? Now, I don't mind the freedom, and somebody brought up to me, well, any student can transfer out wherever they want to go. Why can't a student athlete? And I said, well, the difference is that why when I go to Macy's and I find a better deal at Nordstrom's or a better situation at Nordstrom's, it's my money, I can spend it any way I want. Well, guess what? Okay, when you're going to school as a, quote, regular student, you're paying your freight. So you can spend it at any school you want. The student athlete is not paying a dime. In fact, they are getting money through cost of attendance. So it is different. I mean, it's different. So this brings with it, I like the idea of players having more freedom. I like that, student athletes. That doesn't bother me, but you've got to null through the unintended consequences. That's why I like the fact they're not going to be discussing this in June. I think you've got to null out, in reality, what are the unintended consequences. Because there will be a couple of them along the way where somebody said, we should have talked that out. Then you have to amend the rule and blah, blah, blah. But think about that. That changes sports dramatically. Let's see. Let's pick. Let's just take an existing player that, even though he's graduating, Baker Mayfield. I don't like playing at Oklahoma. I'm going to go to Texas. Well, now doesn't that change the balance of power of everything else? I don't want to play for Lincoln Riley. I want to play for Tom Herman. Okay, and I'm telling you, I've done games where a guy is on his 4th school in basketball. 4th school, 4. Now one of them may be a junior college, but they're 4th school. You're like, and I'm asking myself, this is what college sports is now?
And most of those times, do you see his play remain steady, or does it decline? Just because the amount of schools that he has gone to in a short period of time.
It's a mixed bag. That's a really good question that I really can't. I've seen no difference in that, but it's a really good question. But take, for example, Nebraska. Penn State just played Nebraska in basketball. Right? 2 forwards. Transfer from Miami, transfer from Nebraska. The center was a transfer from Winthrop. 60% of their starting lineup transferred. They get another transfer from Louisville sitting out, and their top bench player, who's averaging almost 10 a game, is a transfer from Louisville. So much for recruiting. We'll just check the waiver wire. Now, again, I don't mind student athletes having more freedom. But I always love other students can. Oh, really? And, okay, remember, that student athlete leaves with no debt. Right? Does the regular student leave with debt? The regular student leaves with debt because the regular student is paying money. So I can spend my money at Macy's or Nordstrom's. Or if we want to get the suit involved in the conversation, Dollar General. All right, so stop laughing.
Or Dollar Tree.
Whatever works, Yeah, that's where he does all his holiday shopping. You and I both know, based on what we received last year.
Mm-hmm.
I got a gift card from Dollar Tree from him. Mine was for $1. What was yours for?
$3.
Well, he's known you longer. All right, we'll come back.
True.
Does Dollar Tree give out gift cards?
I think they do.
Come back. Come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Sometimes the truth hurts. The first 2 weeks of January, with sub-zero temperatures, put a hurtin' on Sunbury Motors sales. Well, bundle up and save while SMC delivers the biggest discounts imaginable. Sunbury Motors Ford wants to see you in a brand new Escape or F-150. Save up to $8,000 on new Escapes starting at $20,825. Or take up to $14,500 off a new Ford F-150 starting at $25,969. Sunbury Motors Kia doesn't want you to pay a dime in interest for your new Kia. Finance a new Sorento, Sportage, Optima, or Forte for 0% for 75 months. No one has 0% for 75 months but Kia. Sunbury Motors Hyundai wants you with America's best warranty. 10 years, 100,000 miles. Plus, you can save up to $3,807 on a new Santa Fe and $3,112 on a new Hyundai Tucson. Bundle up and save at Sunbury Motors Ford, Kia, or Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf.
You're listening to News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury. You can hear us anywhere in the world with the Sunbury Broadcasting Corporation app.